guys? This is EJ Holland with Wolverine.com, and today we're going to be talking about 5 things we learned from Michigan's big recruiting weekend. But before we do, I want to invite you guys to subscribe to the Wolverine.com today for just $29.99 until August 31st. That gets you through the late signing period, summer official visit season, spring football, and so much more, the rest of the basketball season. Plus, you get to be part of a great message board community over at the Fort, all for just $29.99 until August 31st of 2023. All right, guys, let's dive into it. Michigan had a big recruiting weekend, has another one coming up. So again, you're going to want to take advantage of the special promotion to subscribe to the Wolverine.com. But let's talk about 5 takeaways from this big recruiting weekend. Now, Michigan had a number of top 2024 targets on campus. And my first takeaway is just there were no commits. And I know that's obviously disappointing for Michigan fans. I know heading into the weekend, there seemed to be a lot of buzz on social media, a lot of excitement. And I think Michigan fans were really expecting at least one of these prospects to pull the trigger. Now, as I'm recording this right now, Tuesday afternoon, there has been no commits. But I do think this weekend set the tone for potential commits. I do think Michigan leads with a handful of targets that were on campus. Brian Robinson, Amarion Stewart. I think if they push for guys like Eddie Twerk and Marquise Lightfoot, those guys could eventually jump on board. So again, I think it was more of a tone-setting weekend. You have to remember it's still January, right? There aren't a ton of guys flying off the board yet. I think you'll see more commitments in Michigan's class, potentially, March, April, May, late spring. You usually have a decent amount of decisions. So I don't think there's any reason to panic because there were no commits coming out of the weekend. Overall, buzz was very positive. There's a lot of optimism around Michigan right now with Jim Harbaugh returning, with most of the staff staying on board. And the fact that Harbaugh and new president Santaono are dedicated to figuring out NIL, which should help Michigan recruiting this cycle if an announcement does in fact come soon. Let's go ahead and go to our second takeaway. Michigan made some waves with the Georgia recruits it had on campus this weekend. So 3 recruits from the state of Georgia. Michigan has been investing a lot of resources there. The most notable recruit to come in was Heaven Brown-Schuler, a top 100 defensive lineman out of Atlanta. Brown-Schuler is ranked as the number 51 overall prospect nationally. Monster 300-pounder who can be a 3-tech or a nose at the next level. Michigan made his top 13, which is obviously a big list, but getting him on campus shows that he has legitimate interest in the program. I think this weekend's visit solidified Michigan as an actual player in this recruitment. Michigan defensive line coach Mike Elston has been doing a really nice job here. Defensive coordinator Jesse Minter has been doing a phenomenal job and doesn't get as much credit as he should. He spent all of last week in the state of Georgia. He has previous connections there. He was the Sun Belt Recruiter of the Year in large part because of the job he did recruiting Georgia. So I do think that Minter is going to continue making an impact with high-level prospects, and Heaven Brown-Schuler is definitely one of them. Another is 4-star offensive lineman Walt Claire Flynn, an interior prospect that's likely a guard or center at the next level. Sharon Moore has been making him a top priority. In fact, Moore was just in the state of Georgia doing some recruiting on Monday. So again, really heavy emphasis, not just from Jesse Minter, but from the staff overall. They really want to pull some talent from the Peach State, and Walt Claire Flynn is a definite possibility. He was blown away with the visit. He told me that even though, the weather wasn't ideal, especially for a guy from the South, they had a big snowball fight in the big house and just had a really good time. He had personal time with Jim Harbaugh at the basketball game. I think it was Flynn that Harbaugh was next to while he was eating a burger, and that went kind of viral on social media. So, no, Flynn had a great time. and I think Michigan is a legitimate player there as well. And even going down into the 2025 class, Michigan had one of the more elite linebackers nationally on campus in Montrez Walker out of national powerhouse Buford, also kind of in that Atlanta metro area. Buford is a Division I factory, a ton of prospects coming out of that high school. Jim Harbaugh actually made a personal stop at Buford last month, and Walker is one of the best they have in 2025. I think Michigan's an early leader there. I'm not going to make a full-on prediction that it'll be a Chris Ewald situation where a recruit from the South just surprises and commits to Michigan. But I do think that Michigan is in a very strong spot for Walker coming out of this visit. The third takeaway is investing in Ohio is paying off, with Michigan coming off back-to-back wins over rival Ohio State. I think the doors are open for Michigan to make more of a recruiting impact in Ohio. And you've seen area recruiter Steve Klingscale work there nonstop. He landed a couple of under-the-radar guys last year, and I think that's paving the way to land some more higher-end talent this year. Ohio has, in the past, maybe before I started recruiting, in the past, Ohio has produced some really good players for Michigan. It is an important state, even though it is enemy territory. There's a lot of talent coming out of there. I feel like if Michigan can continue to get back into Ohio and get guys that understand the rivalry and guys that really value what Michigan means, that can only help with the culture. And like I said, a lot of talent coming out of Ohio. It is a really strong cycle in the state of Ohio in 2024. Michigan already has one commit out of Ohio, an on 300 offensive lineman, Luke Hamilton, who was on campus recruiting others. I mentioned that Michigan may lead for on 300 edge Brian Robinson. He is one that Hamilton spent a lot of time recruiting. Robinson has been on campus multiple times. I think Michigan is continuing to build that momentum in the Robinson recruitment. And the same thing can be said about three-star offensive tackle Ben Roebuck, massive tackle prospect at 6'7", 340 pounds. He is a top priority on a really talented offensive line board this cycle. I think Michigan is potentially close to sealing the deal with Roebuck, which a combination of Hamilton and Roebuck would be a great start for Sharon Moore along the offensive line. So Michigan expected to get more Ohio prospects on campus this coming weekend. Last weekend, they hosted borderline five-star defensive back Bryce West. So again, a lot of talent coming from Ohio that is starting to get really interested in Michigan after back-to-back wins over the Buckeyes. Fourth thing we learned is Michigan built on its lead for Amarion Stewart, a four-star wide receiver out of Bolingbrook High. Michigan hosted him multiple times in the fall and took a commanding lead there. And I think they really want to seal the deal sooner rather than later. Jim Harbaugh spent a lot of personal time with Stewart. He has a great relationship with Ron Bellamy. He has great relationships with guys on the team. Obviously, Michigan has done really well in Chicagoland throughout the last few cycles. He's close with Tyler Morris, who signed with Michigan in the 2022 class. So a lot to like about Amarion Stewart as well. Very explosive prospect that can line up in the slot or out wide. There are some other more NIL-friendly schools involved here, Miami, Oregon, some more local schools involved as well, like Wisconsin, which also hosted him for a visit over the weekend. So there is some competition for Stewart, but right now I think Michigan leads, and I think this visit really helped Michigan kind of solidify itself as the leader heading into the spring. Last thing we learned this weekend is Stanford commit Cameron Brandt did make it to campus for his official visit, so a lot of the headlines were focused around the underclassmen. But remember, the late period is only a couple of weeks away, and Brandt is a top remaining target, four-star defensive lineman out of Chatsworth, Sierra Canyon in California. committed to Stanford in the summer, elected not to sign with the Cardinal during the early period after they parted ways with head coach David Shaw. I'm told the visit went really well. Brandt is very quiet, doesn't post a ton on social media, but the Wolverines are optimistic they can flip him before or on National Signing Day, which is slated for February 1st. He is, again, listed as a defensive lineman. Michigan likes him as more of a bigger edge. Remember, the Wolverines lost Collins and Chiapong late last cycle, or late this cycle. He flipped to Miami close to the early signing period in December. Michigan didn't really fill that void during the early signing period. Now they are looking to do that with Cameron Brandt. So a lot of positive reviews coming out of the Brandt official visit. The Wolverines are looking to overcome distance, but Brandt loves the blend of elite academics and elite football at Michigan. Obviously, Stanford is a phenomenal school, but the football isn't really comparable to Michigan. So that's something that is working in the Wolverines' favor. They just, again, have to basically overcome distance. And I think Michigan took a big step towards that this weekend. So overall, again, no commits, but a very positive weekend. Michigan will have another shot to really impress recruits this weekend. A number of big-time prospects expected on campus. You're going to want to stay locked into the Wolverine.com for that. A lot of intel coming out of that weekend. There was even a surprise visitor on Monday. We had that scoop over at the Wolverine, so make sure to subscribe today for just $29.99 until August 31st of this year.
Thank you so much for watching. For more videos from the Wolverine, whether it be football, basketball, recruiting, live shows, and more, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for the latest.